Powerful men around the world are finally facing some consequences related to their connections with Jeffrey Epstein, the latest being the World Economic Chief, who's stepping down because of emails that were just recently disclosed that he sent and received from Epstein. Also, Bill Gates is now admitting to having some sex with women that he had once denied, still saying that he didn't know about Jeffrey Epstein's illegal activities. That and the latest from the Miami Herald, who has been doing a deep dive investigation since the beginning with reporter Julie Brown, laying out detailed facts how Epstein not only was currying favor with politicians and business leaders, but also the exact law enforcement and legal system that was trying to punish him. My name is Dina Dahl with the MeidasTouch Network. Let's get into this. Now, first of all, in terms of the first resignation that we were just the latest resignation that we had, the World Economic Chief. Now, he came out and told the Norwegian public radio not that long ago, before, of course, this latest release of documents, that, quote, he was completely unaware of his criminal actions and past, and that he never would have met Epstein, quote, had I known. But as it turns out, he actually was related and stayed connected to Epstein long after the fact that Epstein entered into the non-prosecution plea agreement back in 2008. In fact, in March of 2019, Epstein texted Brende a letter written by his lawyers talking about saying the number of young women involved in the investigation has been vastly exaggerated. That is what Epstein's lawyers wrote in the letter. Of course, it's not young women. It was many times actual children. I mean, there were sometimes young women, but there were certainly also children. So even that letter, they're kind of misstating, let's say, they're completely omitting the children that were involved. So Mr. Brende replied to that with a thumbs up emoji. This is the person who evidently said he had no idea about the extent of Epstein's activities being held to account. This is, of course, Norway has had quite a bit of accountability, taking people to account. One of their former ministers also being charged with gross public misconduct. Again, we see in the UK, 2 people there, including Prince Andrew, being charged with public misconduct while in office. Now, back here, Bill Gates, as we know, his wife, Melinda Gates, came out and said that her divorce was pretty horrific. And she talks about this right after the email that was released that said, I need to basically slip antibiotics to my wife because I got an STD while sleeping with Russian women. Now, email was not sent by Bill Gates to Epstein. It was in fact sent from Epstein to himself. We can question what that was about, whether or not this was his draft of way of trying to figure out what he was going to say or not going to say. But at the time this came out, that particular email came out, we heard this from Melinda Gates.
The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life.
After that email came out, a spokesperson for Gates said that it was, quote, absolutely absurd and completely false, that claim, right, about sleeping with Russian women and needing the STD. But now he said to a town hall about to his employees, essentially, of his foundation, said that he did actually have affairs with a Russian bridge player who he met at bridge events and one with a Russian nuclear physicist who he evidently met with business activities. Now, he's not still admitting to the whole STD and slipping antibiotics, but it is interesting because when that first came out, the whole thing was absurd. And now he did sleep with 2 Russian women. He is saying that they are women and not children, and he's saying who they are. So here you have Epstein with this email with somebody like Bill Gates, so incredibly powerful and wealthy, having this information on him. And who is this Russian bridge player? Who is this Russian nuclear physicist? Are they spies? Are they not spies? I mean, this is the problem with the DOJ and FBI not actually looking into this, because those of us in independent media are uncovering details and uncovering other reporting. And we can put together things in our mind, but whether or not that is facts, as a lawyer, I want it to be proved, because sometimes it's put together in a way that maybe we don't even know. I mean, there's so much being revealed about his ties. But what we do know is that the World Economic Chief and Bill Gates at first completely denied everything and now are admitting at least some of the truth. Bill Gates is still saying that he has no idea about the illicit activities of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, according to Virginia Giuffre and her Nobody's Girl book, she says it's impossible to have spent any significant time with Epstein and not know, because he had the children with him always. I mean, this was how sick and depraved he was, that he was abusing children multiple times a day, usually, she said. And so they were always around him, and often in dresses of, not fully clothed, and that he had nude pictures of these children around, or young women. Like, it was obvious, she says, right, that you couldn't spend a significant time with him without knowing. And so make it as you will, but this is what's kind of unfolding here. And all of this coming the backdrop with that latest reporting by the Miami Herald. Interestingly, according to that reporting, while Epstein was in his kind of fake, house arrest, right, where he was able to leave 12 hours a day and supposedly was still abusing children there, that they were able to get through the supposed, law enforcement that was supposed to be protecting Epstein. But also he was communicating evidently to try to get the terms of his house arrest become more lenient and to allow him more access to the outside world through his own medical psychologist. Evidently, the court allowed him to use his own doctor and not a court-appointed doctor. And there's many emails in the files that the Miami Herald points out where he's asking that doctor to then communicate with law enforcement to make his, house arrest, or whatever you want to call it, this completely sweetheart deal Epstein get even better. Of course, the doctor is saying that he didn't then communicate it. But, again, take that as you will. And then also, more reporting by the Miami Herald about one of the lawyers involving the whole non-prosecution agreement to begin with, and specifically how much communication he had with him after the fact. Magnesium is something most of us lack, and if you're taking the drugstore type, you're still not getting the full picture. Almost every supplement uses one form of magnesium, but magnesium comes in many forms, and each form helps your health in a different way. That's exactly why you need to try Qualia Magnesium Plus. Now, most people know that magnesium is critical for sleep, but some forms help muscle recovery, brain function, heart health, bone health, mood, and over 300 functions in the body. That's why Qualia Magnesium Plus is the only product to combine 10 bioavailable forms of magnesium with more than 70 trace minerals that help fuel magnesium support. It's full spectrum magnesium to deliver magnesium's full potential. Full body benefits include sleeping deeper, thinking sharper, recovering faster, supporting muscle strength, steadier mood and stress response, better energy metabolism. It's not just a sleep supplement. It's a full body magnesium system. Qualia Magnesium Plus has helped me, and I know it will do wonders for you. Experience the most trusted magnesium for purity, potency, and performance. Plus, it's non-GMO, vegan, and gluten-free, making it a choice you can feel good about. Go to qualialife.com/mistrial for 50% off. And here's a bonus. Use the code mistrial for an additional 15% off your order. That's QUALIA life.com/mistrial and use code mistrial. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. So Matthew Menschel was the former chief of the criminal division in Miami. He left 1 month before Epstein's non-prosecution agreement was finalized. A key provision that was due to him was that the terms of Epstein incarceration be determined by state court. And the Palm Beach State Court that was going to oversee it evidently promised federal prosecutors that Epstein would be incarcerated. But as we know, Epstein was able to manage this 12-hour work release where he evidently even continued to abuse children. So that key provision was due evidently to Matthew Menschel. This is according to the Miami Herald, pouring through the documents and being early ground investigative reporting on this. So Menschel then continues business and social relationship with Epstein for years. Now, he says it is because he went into private practice, and so he was looking for, let's say, legal business opportunities. But the emails show that Menschel himself reached out, initiated a lot of that contact. It wasn't just about Epstein referring him business. So lots of ties being put together there in that explosive Miami Herald reporting how much Epstein used his leverage to get not just the beginning sweetheart deal where it was just a 2-year sentence, but then having that sentence apparently through Menschel, be able to be allowed to the state court where he had even more leverage and using even his own doctor to continue to negotiate favorable terms of that, even while he was under his house arrest. So be sure to free subscribe to the MeidasTouch Network if you haven't already. Subscribe to the Mistrial podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. There's so much coming on right now. As you can see, I'm traveling to DC for the People's State of the Union. It was an amazing event. And check out the Mistrial sponsors in the description below, because so grateful for our sponsors who are not censoring us, which is so important in this day and age.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.